Hi, good evening to you. It is the first meeting in December, and we're glad to have you here today. We have a quorum, so I call this meeting to order. Our first order of business would have been an invocation. Mr. Knox, do you want to go ahead and to let us know why we're not doing an invocation tonight and just doing a moment of silence?
Yes, we had a judge enter an order against the county enjoining the holding of invocations in the manner that they were being done before. You've authorized an appeal, which I'll get an official action on later on this evening. And pending that appeal, we feel it's appropriate that we do the moment of silence in lieu of an invocation instead of trying to come up with a new policy on that. We just wait till the appellate court rules on the existing policy.
Thank you, sir. So if we would pause for a moment of silence and thank you. Commissioner Smith, if you'd lead us in the pledge.
Stand, please. Follow me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I had a request from a citizen that Mr. Abate, that your new business would be moved up here. I think it's non-controversial, and that is item 6E1. Commission, if you would open up to that. It's the appointment of the North Brevard Hospital District Board members. County Manager?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This item is a request to appoint two of the members that were up this time for that board. We have conducted the public advertising that was required. We received the responses from people, and the selection process, you will see in the agenda request, has two individuals who were currently our board members who put in their a request to stay on the board, and that has been that's what's up for board's consideration this evening.
Commissioners, any comments or a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Commissioner by a motion to approve by Commissioner Smith, second by Commissioner Barfield. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? It passes 5-0. We'll move into resolutions. Our first resolution is for Andrew Jackson. Approval of minutes. I need a motion to approve the minutes for October 24th, 2017.
So moved.
A motion by Commissioner Isnardi, second by Commissioner Barfield. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Angela Bentley Henry, if you'd come forward, please. Ma'am, if you would read the names of the basketball team, it would save me from messing it up pretty good. So if you wouldn't mind, and then I'm going to read the resolution.
Okay. The team consists of 16 players: Kiera Anderson, Ayla Davis, Asharia Ennels, Shemaya Joyner, Trinity Kierstead, Alexandria Lester, Caitlin Lewis, Olivia McNally, Stephanie Willette, Desiree Schwartz, Krishanti Slaughter, Melion Smith, Talea Smith, Serena Watson, Janila Williams, Lauren Williams, and three managers: Ure McAllister, Brittany Grant, and Zanaya Woods.
Thank you. I had an opportunity to watch a lot of your games. Two of my granddaughters are cheerleaders for you. And the phenomenal job that you did with these young girls, they were as good as any guys' teams I've watched.
Thank you.
They're just great, aggressive, and just wonderful. I enjoyed it immensely. Whereas Andrew Jackson Middle School girls basketball team, the Lady Generals, won the Brevard County Championship on October 19th, 2017. They defeated Stone Middle School 37-31 in the county championship game hosted at Vieira High School. And whereas the team finished the regular season with a perfect record of 11-1 and were number one team in North Division. And whereas this is the first time in 11 years the Jackson Middle School basketball team has won the county championship, and whereas the team is thankful for all the support from the Jackson Middle School student body and the Titusville community and the Jackson Middle School administration, facility, and faculty and staff, now therefore let it be resolved that the Brevard County Board of County Commissioners does hereby commend and recognize the Andrew Jackson Middle School girls basketball team 2017 and county champions. Done, ordered, and adopted in this regular session on the 5th day of December 2000 AD. I so move to approve. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Would you like to say a few things?
This is a really big deal for the school and our community. My principal is here also from Jackson Middle School, and we're just really thankful that you guys invited us to show recognition to my girls and how hard they worked all season. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next resolution, Commissioner Kurt Smith, we are just so thankful for your donation with this, so I'm kind of honored to read this. Whereas the National Prostate Cancer Awareness Month, District 4 Commissioner Kurt Smith challenged Brevard County government staff to take part in a No Shave November to raise awareness of the prostate and to, oh, I'm going to mess this word up, cancer in support of those cancer patients who lose their hair during treatment. And whereas Commissioner Smith's challenge included a commitment from the commissioner to personally match any donations raised by the county manager, assistant county managers, directors, and whereas Brevard County government directors chose to remember those lost to prostate cancer, to offer support to patients and their families, and to support the American Cancer Society's commitment to better prevention, detection, and treatment methods. And whereas money normally intended for shaving and grooming products was collected for donations to the American Cancer Society for cancer research and education in order to save lives and to aid those fighting the battle. Now be it resolved that the Brevard County government of Brevard County, Florida does hereby recognize the donations collected for 2017's No Shave November in Brevard County in support of research, awareness, and treatment of prostate and testicular cancer, and present those donations to the American Cancer Society, done and ordered and adopted this 5th day of December 2017. I move to approve. Second by Commissioner Isnardi. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Let the record show we raised $3,100.
Thank you. Did you want to say a few words? Okay. Commissioner Smith, did you want to say anything?
Just thank you for the directors for stepping forward and doing this. I first heard about No Shave November about 5 years ago. I was watching an NFL football game on a Sunday afternoon, and I saw Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, and they both had beards on, and I kind of wondered what they were doing. And they mentioned in the course of the broadcast that it was No Shave November, and I thought, well, you know, everybody knows about pink and breast cancer awareness, but not a whole lot of people know about prostate cancer awareness. And I think the statistic is that actually more men die each year from prostate cancer than women die from breast cancer. So every year since, I've been growing a beard, and I challenged other guys last year and the year before since I've been here, and we grew beards. This year, the directors took it upon themselves to raise money, and I said, well, whatever you raise, I'll match. And so that's how we came up with the money. $3,100, and credit goes to all of our directors, men and the women. So thanks, guys.
Thank you, sir. I thought maybe we should call a 5-minute break and let all you guys go shave and come back. Yeah. Is Kyle Darville here and his family? If you'd come up, sir. We have a couple new Eagle Scouts with us this evening, and I'm going to read a resolution. If you guys would speak to us in just a moment, I'd love to hear from you. We're really proud of you. Kyle James Darville has achieved the rank of Eagle Scout, the highest rank awarded to a Boy Scout, by competing in the demanding requirements of personal development, leadership, and community service. And whereas Kyle earned Ordeal and Brotherhood in the Order of the Arrow and has worked towards his Eagle Scout Award, which was achieved April 27, 2017 at the age of 15. And whereas Kyle has earned 6 Eagle Palms by earning 51 merit badges, 21 of which are required for the Eagle rank, and whereas only 5% of all Boy Scouts earn the Eagle Scout Award, a performance-based achievement with standards that have been well maintained over the years. And whereas for his Eagle project, Kyle designed and supervised the building and installation of 14 benches for teachers and students to use while waiting for car loops at the Fair Glen Elementary School. And whereas Kyle attends Cocoa High and is involved in the JROTC and the iTiger program. And whereas the lessons learned by obtaining the Eagle Scout Award are important to not only the life of the Scout, but also to enhance the future development of leadership in our nation. Now therefore be it resolved that the Brevard County Board of County Commissioners does hereby recognize and congratulate Kyle James Darville for his outstanding effort in obtaining his Eagle Scout Award, and offers congratulations and best wishes for a successful future. Done, ordered, and adopted in regular session this 5th day of 2017. Congratulations. I make a motion to approve. A second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Congratulations, sir. Thank you. Is there anything you would like to say?
Not really, but I'm thankful for...
We're really proud of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, we have one more Eagle Scout with us here tonight, Dylan Newbeck. And his parents. Dylan Newbeck has achieved the rank of Eagle Scout, the highest rank awarded to a Boy Scout, by completing the demanding requirements of personal development, leadership, and community service. And whereas Dylan has earned 7 Eagle Palms by earning 58 merit badges, 21 of which are required for the Eagle rank, and whereas Dylan earned membership and Brotherhood in the Order of the Arrow and has worked hard towards his Eagle Scout Award, which he achieved on September 27, 2017 at the age of 16. And whereas only 5% of all Boy Scouts earn the Eagle Scout Award, a performance-based achievement with standards that have been well maintained over the years. And whereas Dylan attends Space Coast Junior Senior High and is involved in the STEAM Academy. And whereas for his Eagle project, Dylan designed and supervised the building installation of a covered bulletin board, hay bin dividers, and 2 access ramps for his hay storage at Harmony Farms, a not-for-profit, volunteer-based organization dedicated to improving the quality of life for disabled individuals through interactions with horses. And whereas the lessons learned by obtaining the Eagle Scout Award are important not only to the life of the Scout, but also to enhance the future development of leadership in our nation. Now therefore be it resolved that the Brevard County Board of County Commissioners does hereby recognize and congratulate Dylan Patrick Newbeck for his outstanding efforts in obtaining his Eagle Scout Award and offers congratulations and best wishes for your successful future. Done, ordered, and adopted on this 5th day, December 2017 AD. I make a motion to approve. Second. And a second by Commissioners Barfield and Isnardi. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Congratulations, sir. Would you like to say a few things?
I would just like to say thank you very much.
Thank you. We're really proud of you. Next resolution, District 2.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to ask Mark Brahms to come up, and I don't know if you have anybody else from the Homeless Coalition here. Oh, it's okay. This resolution is for National Homeless Persons Memorial Day. Each year, I'm the one that presents this, and I love doing it. I'd just like everyone to know that this is an organization of multiple different organizations together in the Homeless Coalition, and they're making headway in our homeless situation, and really appreciate all that y'all do. And I'll read this resolution. Whereas homelessness has caused or hastened the deaths of inadequately housed low-income persons in Brevard County, and whereas the spirit of the holiday season of giving provides an opportunity for affirmation and renewal regarding the commitment to end homelessness, and whereas December 21st, the first day of winter and the longest night of the year, has been designated National Homeless Persons Memorial Day by the National Coalition for the Homelessness. And whereas the Brevard Homeless Coalition has planned 2 countywide memorial events recognizing homeless people who have passed away in the past year in our county, and the first memorial taking place at North Brevard Charity Sharing Center located at 4475 South Hopkins Avenue, Titusville. And the second memorial will take place at Daily Bread, located at 815 East Fee Avenue, Melbourne. Both services will be held at 3 p.m. on December 21st. And whereas in this season of generosity and sharing, citizens of Brevard County are encouraged to commit themselves to promoting compassion and concern for fellow citizens, especially those who are poor and homeless. And whereas in remembering those who have passed away on our streets, in our emergency shelters, and in condemned or abandoned properties from ailments or conditions directly related to homelessness, the cause of ending homelessness is kept urgent, as is the collective commitment to preventing such deaths in the future. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, does hereby designate December 21st, 2017 as National Homeless Persons Memorial Day, done, ordered, and adopted in regular session this 5th day of December, AD 2017. Madam Chair, I make a motion that we accept this resolution.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Congratulations.
Thank you, Commissioner Barfield. Thank you all. On behalf of the members of the Brevard Homeless Coalition and all the households that we serve, I thank you for this resolution and all of your support. I can assure you that we are making progress in meeting our goal of ending homelessness in Brevard County by 2020. We still have a long way to go, but we will not rest until this resolution is no longer necessary. Thank you.
Okay, Carl Brown, Shannon Daly, Christina Carver, Nikki Hensley, and Trizia Evanson. Come up front, please. Thank you all for being here. I want to read this resolution, and then I'll give you guys a chance to explain a little bit about what you're doing and why we're doing it. I want to say I'm very, very proud of Manatee Elementary for doing this. Whereas Manatee Elementary is a K through 6th grade school located in Viera, the heart of Brevard County, and have earned an A school rating along with many other academic distinctions since opening in 2003. Whereas the level of academic success that Manatee achieves is the direct result of progressive leadership and highly credentialed teachers who provide many enrichment activities, including code writing, STEM activities, academic clubs, and more, in addition to creative and athletic programs that nurture the artistic and physical interests of the students. And whereas the support of the PTO and the community connections provide Manatee with the resources and opportunities to create meaningful programs that foster concern for others and teach both the responsibility and the reward of making the world a better place. And whereas throughout the year, Manatee hosts a variety of events to reinforce these core values. Their staff, students, and families raise money and awareness for a variety of charitable causes, including local food banks, libraries, senior centers, cancer research, the Ronald McDonald House, and other deserving causes. And whereas Manatee's Green School initiatives put a more focused effort on recycling in their school and neighborhoods with efforts that are not isolated or rare occurrences, but they reflect a deep commitment to raising compassionate citizens of tomorrow. And whereas the National Blue Ribbon Schools program is a United States government program created in 1982 to honor schools that have achieved high levels of student achievement or made significant improvements in closing the achievement gap among student subgroups. And whereas to be named a National Blue Ribbon School of Excellence is the highest honor in education. Whereas Manatee was one of only three schools in Brevard County that received this distinction and the only non-choice school to be awarded such an honor. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, does hereby recognize and congratulate Manatee Elementary School for their outstanding efforts in receiving the National Blue Ribbon. Done, ordered, and adopted in regular session this 5th day of December 2017. Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve this.
We have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Would anybody like to speak, or do you want to all take turns?
I was nominated to speak. Thank you very much for the resolution. Manatee Elementary has been around since 2003, and we've been an A school every year. But to receive the National Blue Ribbon was truly an honor. You have to get asked to apply for it, and we were asked. We responded in about 2 or 3 seconds that we would love to fill out the 20-page application. They only gave us 3 weeks to do it, but we pulled everybody together and pulled it off. I think it's not only a recognition of the fact that we have 925 students that understand what academic excellence is, but they also understand that giving back to the community is equally as important. When you live in Viera, you have a tendency to have a lot more things than other people do. So we made sure that our students understand that we live in a community that encompasses all of Brevard County in the state of Florida. And I think that's probably what put us over the top to be a National Blue Ribbon school. So I want to thank my assistant principals and my 2 parents, because it's definitely a Manatee Elementary Community Award. Thank you again.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we're moving into consent agenda. Does anybody on the commission wish to pull any of the consent items? I have one card from Ms. Barker on number 2C4. Ms. Courtney, are you in here? Would you like to speak? Are you here for questions or? Okay. I'll receive a motion to pass the consent agenda. Motion by Commissioner Barfield, second. Second. By Commissioner Isnardi. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Public comments. I have one card from Mr. Charbonneau. Mr. Charbonneau, if you'd like to come up, please.
Richard Charbonneau, Satellite Beach. I had not planned on speaking at all today, but the prostate thing, what Commissioner Smith did, sort of struck home. About 8 years ago, I had prostate cancer. And I was very lucky because I'd been getting checked because I was an airline pilot, oddly enough, once every 6 months. And I did not have a PSA over 4, but I had a PSA acceleration. And because of the PSA acceleration, they did the biopsies, which was not fun. But the end result was that I had radiation in the very early stages, and I had 0 effects from it. And I recommend to all of my friends that are 50 years older to get your prostate checked. It's not gay. I mean, you know, that's what some guys say. And I have 2 friends of mine that died from this in their 50s. And I go to, I don't know if Kurt still goes there, but I used to go to Trinity Presbyterian. Now it's called Trinity Wellsprings. But I became the go-to guy for prostate cancer. And a lot of people came to me, and I told them that if you catch it very, very early, it's 98% curable for life. And if you catch it very, very late, the prostate being served like a little grape, and with the tumor, once it pushes through and actually tears the grape, that's called a T3 tumor. And once it pushes through, then the cancer is free to go into your spine, your colon, and other organs. So catching it early is paramount, but catching it late is maybe 95% the end of the road for you. And it's so easy to do the check. You go in once a year or twice a year when you're 50, surely when you're 50. And oddly enough, I don't know why, but for black men it's 40, and it's some kind of genetic thing, I guess. But again, the test is very, very simple. But the point being is that if you go in early and you get a PSA, you get a trail. And the trail of the PSA is more important than the 4 number, because I went to the doctor and the doctor said, well, you're well under 4. And that if you just walked in here off the street at 58 years old, I'm 68 now. If you walked in here at 58 years old and had a PSA under 4, I'd be patting you on the back. And he said, your PSA is 1.7. And he said, that's excellent. However, he said 6 months ago it was 1. And he said it was 1 for years. And he said, you've got acceleration, and now we're looking, and they found it. So it saved my life. And you too. If you had it, good luck to you. Okay.
No, but it's just something that I have a passion for.
Well, we're both old guys, so, we all get it sooner or later.
Well, that's one thing I've learned, and I don't want to take over the meeting, but I have a friend that is a doctor, and he told me probably 20 years ago that it's something that virtually every man will die with, but not die from, because virtually every man winds up with it. But if you get it early enough, you're probably going to die from it. So it's important to get those checks. And it's like any cancer. You get it discovered early, you have an excellent chance of surviving. So just a passion of mine, cancer. I lost my mom, and Pancreatic cancer is the same way.
Thank you, sir. I hope everybody receives the message you just brought with that and the message today, and make sure that you do what you need to do to take care of yourself and your family. Mr. Tovey?
Charles Tovey, 2555 Roberts Road, Melbourne, Florida. Speaking about censorship and the provision or law or amendment and resolution, I guess that's the term that you would use. Isn't Rule 4 on the back of the speaker's card applicable? It says to all persons. That would be applicable to all persons. So I don't know if we would need an actual resolution card. And the other thing is who's going to decide if this does get passed? Who's going to decide who gets sent, who's going to enforce or not enforce? And I have a problem with selective enforcement myself, and that's what I'm leading into now, is that no matter where I go, it seems it's okay for other people to do things, but as soon as I practice what other people do, there's discretion, and I'm aggressed upon for some other technicality or some other reasons, and I don't understand. I seem to be a magnet for this trouble that follows me everywhere, and I appreciate everybody's concern, but I'm looking for help. I'm looking for help. Set me up an appointment, tell me what I know the overall spectrum of things in my situation, but I need to contact somebody. Brevard County, however you guys want to figure it out, you want to tear my house down, whatever it is, it's only a little bit of damage. No one's been out to my house except for Commissioner Bolin Lewis. And there's only one person here that still was in the courtroom the day I went to court, and I'm open to going to court again, but it's going to cost me money and time, and I've already put a lot of my resources at stake just trying to defend my right to live. I'm an American. How far do I have to go? What do I need to do? I'll be back, and if there's a zoning meeting Thursday night, I'll be there about the speed bumps and the traffic and the congestions and the trash and all the other things that gets noticed by the rest of our community in Brevard County as well. And I did want to say that Orlando has a program for the homeless. They just opened up the doors to a small place that they can go in and get showers and naps and recoup. And I still have a program for the community, the river, the lagoons. Everything is all-inclusive and self-manageable. I'm going to talk about my God at another time, and see you Thursday. I hope you had a happy Thanksgiving. Bye.
We're moving into public hearings. Number 4A. Mr. Holmes?
Number 4A is a petition to vacate a portion of a 50-foot wide unopened public right-of-way on Moore Avenue. The petitioner owns adjacent property and believes that by vacating the right-of-way, he can enhance the maintenance and security of the area.
Thank you, sir.
And we have received no objections to that.
I have 3 cards. Mr. Brewer? Okay. William Kidd? Thank you. Miss Laura Young? If you would state your name and location where you live for the record.
Sure. My name is Laura Young. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Dean Mead, 7380 Morrell Road, Suite 200, Viera, Florida, 32940. I had to think about it for a second there. I'm also going to keep it to questions unless you want additional discussion. I know Mr. Holmes did a good job presenting it. I'm here on behalf of the petitioners. They would like to vacate this area. It's been a problem area for a long time for them in terms of trespassers and people who have come onto their property, and for maintenance issues as well. And noteworthy that the Brevard County has not been maintaining this area since it got paved up to the adjacent road. So for a couple decades now, the petitioners and their prior owners have been maintaining the area and doing a good job of it. And I wanted to make special note, the applicants wanted me to as well, to commend Mark Concesos at the Department of Transportation. He has been extremely helpful in helping them navigate the application process and working through everything that was required. So if you've got any questions, I'll answer them for you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioners?
I make a motion, we approve the petition to vacate.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Smith. All in favor, vote aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Item 4B.
Yes, item 4B is a resolution and exchange agreement with R.C. Kirk and Ethel May Kirk for property located near Dixie Avenue in Mims. And this is a situation where the petitioner has property that's separated from the right-of-way by a piece of property the county owns, and the item before you is to exchange a portion of the county property for an easement over a portion of the applicant's property, and the applicant is going to pay the county the difference in value.
Thank you, sir. You did a creative job on fixing this situation for us and him. Thank you. Motion?
I make a motion that we approve the resolution and exchange agreement.
I have a motion on the floor. Second? Second by Commissioner Isnardi. All in favor, say aye. 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 Opposed? Passes 5-0. Okay, we're moving into new business. 6A. I do have some cards on these. Are we going to do the presentation first and then receive questions?
I think that would be the best way to proceed.
All right, I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioners. As you all know, as a result of Hurricane Irma, we had several impacts on sanitary sewer systems, especially in Beachside. And while this issue was preliminarily addressed by the Citizens Oversight Committee about a month and a half ago, staff has been working on a presentation so that the board and the public could be as best informed about what's occurred, and we spent a lot of time and effort to put this together in order to try to explain where we've been, where we are, and hopefully where we're going. We're very appreciative of the two items that the board tonight already on consent has approved, dealing with items that you will hear during the course of the presentation, which will give us the opportunity to accelerate and move forward on some of the things that you're going to hear tonight. But I'm going to turn it over to our Utilities Director, Jim Helmer, and Mark Regan to provide the board some information relative to the mitigation efforts that are underway in addition to the problems we've had.
Thank you, Commissioners, for the opportunity to talk to you about what we've experienced, where we're at right now, and where we hope to go in the future. This particular slide shows a little bit about the other providers that we have in Brevard County. We're not the only utility. Several municipalities and private utilities exist. But I think the more interesting statistic, it's going to be difficult for you to see on the slide, but in the lower right-hand corner of the slide is the location of the South Beaches wastewater treatment plant. And that particular plant has been the plant that's experienced some of the discharges that we are all aware of during the storm event. The important thing is that is an 8 million gallon a day plant. That's what the permit is for. And they average about 6.5 MGD per day. During the storm event, we experienced on one occasion, one day, 16.6 million gallons going through that plant, which is more than twice the permitted capacity and much higher in terms of the difference between the average daily flow. In fact, we had actually 70 days over the course of the last couple of those 2-month periods, 70 days where we experienced flows that were higher than the capacity of the plant. So that shows you the inundation we received from a long period of rainfall. So we have some questions to answer. Why has the sewage been discharged into the Indian River Lagoon? Why wasn't it stopped sooner? What are we doing to prevent it in the future? How long will the adjustments take? What is it going to cost? And who's going to pay for it? Wastewater is discharged into the lagoon when inflow to the sanitary sewer exceeds the capacity of the collection system. So the collection system, as we said, is designed for 8 million gallons a day. Sorry about that. Hurricane Irma's 10 inches of rain dropped 2.3 billion gallons of water on the service area, and the sewer becomes flooded if just 0.3% of that gets into the sewer. Overflows have to be discharged occasionally in lieu of going in, backing up in customers' homes, schools, and so forth, and businesses. So how would the stormwater get into the sewer system? Mark's going to talk a little bit about inflow and infiltration.
On the next slide, you should see, I'm not seeing it.
We're missing a slide. Interesting. That one slide is missing, which demonstrates the inflow and infiltration both on the private side of the system and the public side of the system. And it gives a demonstration of the effect of both from the groundwater and so forth. Maybe you can embellish without having the slide in front of you.
Could you put it on there?
Yeah. The slide looks something like this. And what it's about is the beachside sanitary sewer collection system is built primarily of vitrified clay pipe, which is very brittle, and it comes in 5-foot segments. So every 5 feet along the way on the beach side in the sewer, you'll find a pipe joint with a 50-year-old gasket. Most of the beachside sewer collection system is constructed under the level of the ordinary groundwater table. So we're able to find defects in the pipe just through ordinary inspection. When we find pipes that have a lot of cracks or bad joints, we pull a fiberglass sock through it, epoxy coated, and pump it in with steam to make the epoxy go off, and it essentially creates one single pipe from manhole to manhole, eliminating those joints. But we don't see a lot of the defects in the collection system until the water table begins to rise. And when we get a lot of rain and the water table rises, it starts to reveal other defects in the public sewer, but also it starts to leak in through defects in the homeowners' building drains, through where landscaping has been installed, or fencing where the pipe becomes struck or broken. But then as the water continues to rise, when we get into a flood situation and the water starts to pond in the street, we start to see water overtopping the manholes, stormwater overtopping the manholes and entering the sewer system. Or it starts to find missing clean-out caps on the laterals, or caps that have been struck by lawnmowers and broken. And then some people have plumbed the roof drains of their houses into the sanitary sewer, and also swimming pool drains. Those are illegal connections, but they're found from time to time. So the next slide, which is also missing, is a picture of a gravity sewer, a vitrified clay gravity sewer. So you can see the water spraying in through that defective joint and also through a crack in the top. This is pretty typical over on the beach, and the beach sand having constructed those pipes in beach sand, the differential settlement causes those brittle pipes to crack. Well, how often does the sewer flood with storm water to a level where it requires discharge to the Indian River Lagoon? And that would be another slide. Is that one missing also? It's the one before this one. Or slide number 7. No, this is the wrong presentation. So, okay, this one. All right, how many times does the sewer flood due to stormwater? It's happened 7 times in the last 13 years. It's flooded to a level that causes us to discharge into the Indian River Lagoon. During the hurricanes of 2004 and 2005, Tropical Storm Faye, of course, and then in 2004, September of 2014, it rained for a week. And then, of course, the recent Hurricane Irma and the 5-inch storm on October 1st, a couple of weeks later. The National Weather Service in Melbourne says that during that period of time, September and October, that 33.6 inches of rain fell in Melbourne. Okay, now we're back on track. Good. Now this is a difficult part of the discussion because it's going to sound like I'm telling you what was discharged into the lagoon wasn't so bad. But that's not what I'm saying at all. What this chart is trying to show is the influence of the stormwater on the sanitary sewer system. What was discharged into the canal was a mixture of the stormwater and sanitary sewage. But raw sewage, for example, we would expect to see 200 parts per million of biological oxygen demand, 30 parts per million of nitrogen, and 10 parts per million of phosphorus. Well, the South Beach wastewater treatment plant has a permit from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection to discharge wastewater, treated wastewater, into the lagoon during certain periods of time where we do mechanical integrity testing for limited periods of time at levels of 20 parts per million biological oxygen demand, 12 parts per million nitrogen, and 4 parts per million phosphorus. What was discharged into the canal during Hurricane Irma and the subsequent storm was at levels of 43 parts per million BOD, 11 parts per million nitrogen, 2 parts per million phosphorus. And even ordinary stormwater, uncontaminated by sanitary sewer, one would expect to see 10 parts per million BOD, 2 parts per million nitrogen, and 0.3 of 1 part phosphorus. So if we take what that amounts to, the Indian River Lagoon rates its projects based upon the number of pounds of nitrogen removed from the lagoon. So in this case, the 20 million gallons of wastewater that the utility discharged into the Indian River Lagoon amounted to about 1,835 pounds of nitrogen. And on the next page is the calculation for that amount, which is the 11 milligrams per liter or parts per million concentration times the 20 million gallons of wastewater discharged amounts to 1,835 pounds. Now, the decision to discharge into the canal is not taken lightly, and these are difficult decisions.
We have difficult decisions. They sound like they're not real difficult, but we're talking about whether we're going to go into a school or a retention pond. We're definitely going in the retention pond, not backing up in the school. And the same with houses or a canal. We're not going to go in the houses. We're going to go into the canal if that's what's required. In the priority of discharge priority, the first thing we do is to use tankers if we can. Then we use on-site isolated retention ponds, stormwater retention ponds, and finally the canal. So we've had some line breaks also, as you probably have heard. So we've discharged to the Indian River Lagoon 6 times in the last 5 years, 4 for the B19 force main, and that's that long transmission line that runs 13.1 miles or so from south of Patrick Air Force Base all the way to the treatment plant. So the largest overflow from one of those breaks was 1.4 million gallons. What about other overflows? Well, we've had power failures. We're adding fixed generators to move more lift stations. We are using on-site engine-driven pumps that don't require electricity. We're partnering with Satellite Beach for support with storage of portable generators, refueling, and possibly routine maintenance. We have low-lying areas along the lagoon. As the sewer system floods, overtops manholes into the streets at low elevations. So we'd like to isolate the low elevation gravity sewers from the overall system and pump to a higher level. In some cases, that might result in the need for high head grinder pumps on private properties so that they can keep the stuff from going into their sewer system. Ongoing improvements. We were fortunate some years ago that the County Commission in 2013 authorized our $134 million 10-year infrastructure improvement program with a series of rate increases, the last of which takes place on January 1st. We're currently in year 4 out of 10. Our utility projects and operations are funded by ratepayers, not by taxes. There is one exception going on right now where we are assisting the Indian River Lagoon program and partnering with them to design certain septic to sewer conversions that are part of the Save Our Lagoon program. This is nice. Okay, so how is this going to get fixed? The key is to keep the stormwater out of the sanitary sewer system. As in that regard, the utility has spent $7.4 million in the last 3 years lining sewer pipes throughout the system. 4.2 million of that is in the South Beaches area. And we have another 1.9 million budgeted for fiscal year 18. The next slide is a little busy and it's probably hard to see from up there, but it's talking about reprioritization of project funds that we already have so that we don't have to raise rates to accommodate most of these projects. Some of these projects weren't anticipated when we got approved for that 10-year, $134 million program. So the first one is that 1.1 mile section of force main in South Patrick that we are in the process of replacing, and that goes from DeSoto Parkway to Banana River Parkway. That project is nearly done, but it wasn't planned for in the long-term plan, but it did cost $3 million. The other force main replacement is the one we talked about earlier down in the south or north Riverside area of that pipeline, and that's a 3.4 mile section that is going to cost $10 million to replace. And so that's going to require some funding from long-term funding. So we're going to have to borrow some money, hopefully from a Florida retirement, or Florida, yes, the state revolving loan program. So now we have, that's 10 million, of course, that wasn't planned. So we have 1.9 million that we are reprioritizing from various areas of the county to go for the South Beaches system only. And so we're going to be doing that as part of that program. So South Beach is ongoing sewer lining. This is a color-coded little map that talks about what has already been lined, what does not need to be lined, what's not yet lined. The cost to line the remainder is about $14 million. The cost to repair laterals on private property is not known. Those are the homeowner's costs, which could be anything from a $3 cleanout cap to a complete replacement of their lateral system and the line for maybe $2,500. We've been talking about the B20 lift station basin because that's where most of the action happened in terms of the discharges. So by the end of fiscal year 18, we'll have 100% of the clay pipes relined in that system. So we will be done with the B20 by the end of this fiscal year. What can we expect from the pipelining and repair program? The EPA has done studies that indicate they think that up to 30% reduction in I&I could be achieved. Does not appear to be a complete solution, but we think if we could get 15% out of the I&I reduction, that might be enough to eliminate problems like the ones we had. How is it going to get fixed? The utility can only repair what's in its right-of-way. So we need cooperations from the homeowners, and we've formed partnerships with the City of Satellite Beach for a pilot test of an incentive program for inspection and repair of homeowner plumbing. And we're in discussions with Indian Harbor Beach, who also have been anxious to help with this process. This one's probably a little tough to see from out there, but this is the result of a smoke test that took place in 2000, 17 years ago. And what we're seeing is little tufts of smoke coming out of the middle of yards, out of storm drains, out of roof drains, and so forth, which these shots were made back in 2000, which demonstrates the problems that we can have in the private systems. Other alternatives that are available, of course, do nothing and accept that overflows occur 0.3% of the time. It's the lowest dollar cost, but the highest health risk, and is not acceptable. So we can increase capacity of the sewer system. We could oversize facilities, make great big pipes, great big infrastructure, but the pipes would not be flushed the other 99.7% of the time because they're too big. So this is a bad alternative and unreasonably high cost, hundreds of millions of dollars potentially. We could store overflow. That would be 20 million gallons in retention basins, expand what we have now to avoid canal discharge, but it's land intensive, 12 acres for 20 million gallons. It's unpopular with local residents, and it would cost 25 million. Storage tanks on soccer fields in Indian Harbor Beach. 20 tanks, 75 feet in diameter, 40 inches high, 6 acres of coverage, and $30 million. Further reduce inflow and infiltration. Create incentives for homeowners to repair. This is unfunded, and we don't know what the cost is until we do the smoke testing project. So the smoke testing needs to be done on an ongoing effort to maintain our level of I&I, to reduce it and maintain it at a low level. So it is funded at this point to do the smoke testing, which cost about $185,000, and the board approved that earlier tonight on the agenda. The pilot program is with Satellite Beach. They're going to help us with a lot of public outreach and information that will help us tell people what we're about to do. Or we can construct a wastewater treatment plant in Indian Harbor Beach. This alternative would be a valuable one because the plant would replace the B20 problematic system. So it'd be a 6 MGD treatment plant, unfunded, at least $50 million, if not more, would require acquisition of property, would require rate increases, and would take 4 to 5 years to construct. So it's a long-term thing. Still might be something to think about. What about discharges from force main breaks? Well, the primary sewer main, as we said, comes from just south of Patrick Air Force Base to Melbourne Beach. We call that the B19 force main. We have to shut off 3 major lift stations when we have a force main to repair. For a break south of B1 lift station, it would take a tanker every 2 minutes. And of course, they can't keep up with that, so we need to get things repaired. What are we doing to stop the force main breaks? We're replacing PVC pipe with ductile iron pipe. The sewer force main running from DeSoto to Banana River Drive is in the second and final stage now of replacement. The board had approved that design and construction of the 1.1 mile section of pipe on an emergency basis some time ago. The South Riverside force main has experienced several breaks, including 2 recently. An engineering task order with HDR Engineering is in the process. Board approval, actually. It was approved earlier tonight. The 3-mile section of the force main will be replaced at a cost of approximately $10 million. We'll be applying for funds from the Florida State Revolving Fund to finance that replacement. Proactive measures, continuing inflow and infiltration reduction program, identifying priority areas for lining public sewers, creating partnerships with municipalities, smoke testing sewers and working with homeowners, and exploring funding for incentives to homeowners to make the repairs. We also want to explore opportunities for overflow storage and treatment, accelerate our PVC force main replacement, and continue our capital improvement program. So in closing, the implementation of the improvements discussed in the presentation should reduce the magnitude and duration of future storm event impacts on the wastewater collection system. Sorry about the technical failures.
And let me add a couple of items that I think would be good for them to add as part of the dialogue. The first of them is that we have, and they have, tried to aggressively be proactive in a variety of areas. That's why you've heard of the reprioritization of lining and to address the specific areas as it relates to B20. As that occurs and as that's part of the solution that is moving forward, along with what you heard about the line, the 3.4 miles line, which is now funded for the engineering, and which we will then move expeditiously with the board's approval to get that constructed as quickly as we can. That leaves us the area of looking at what kind of impact will these items have on future events that we have, and we believe that they will have significant ones. One way we're going to be able to determine that is by looking at what the capacity is on a daily basis for each residential home on beachside compared to where it is on the mainland. And as a matter of fact, I'd let Mark talk about that issue, because as we evaluate that, if we see that those numbers become closer to what is on the mainland, then we would have higher hopes that the result will be better for our system, in that we would have less discharge. So let you address that issue.
Okay, yeah. Over in Vieira, which is a relatively new collection system, and it's built primarily with PVC pipe in 20-foot lengths. And the soil conditions are different, and the groundwater conditions are different over here in Vieira. We find that the average daily flow from a residence is about 162 gallons per day. But over on the beach side, we find that the flow from a residence is about 286 gallons per day. So it's a difference of 100 gallons per day per residence between Vieira, a modern system, and the beach side, 50-year-old, 60-year-old vitrified clay collection system.
And the reason that is important?
The reason why
measuring that would be important.
I'll take that. That's what we're trying to find out, is with the 6.5 average daily flow in the South Beaches plant, we'd like to find out if we can tighten up our system and tighten up the private property side of the system and get that gallons per day down closer to what the Vieira system has, a tight system, new system. We might see that average daily flow at the plant from 6.5 go down lower, which would be an indication of winning the I&I war. If we get it down to 5.75 instead of 6.5 as an average daily flow, that frees up capacity at the plant and in the system. So it's a significant number to see that much difference between South Beach's customers and Vieira customers, and it must be from I&I infiltration.
Okay, and the last point I wanted to make, and I wanted to emphasize to the board, is that everything that you've heard this evening outside of the building of another wastewater treatment facility can be accomplished and is expected to be accomplished within the existing rate structure that we have. So all the reprioritization and everything the board is improving, while it may result in our taking out some state revolving loans, can be accomplished within that existing rate structure. Just the wastewater treatment facility, which quite honestly is at least a 4 to 5 year undertaking. And because it would be 4 to 5 years before you could actually do anything with that or achieve that, what staff believes the best approach would be to take all the other steps other than that and see what we can accomplish during the year, see if the I&I is reduced, which we should have a very significant impact on the potential for discharges in the future. And if we're successful with that, then we can move forward with that plan. If in fact we do not reduce the I&I and we don't reduce that 280 gallon per day, what we have on beachside per residence, then that we could explore the wastewater treatment facility, as another potential consideration moving forward. But that's probably down a year plus, considering that it's going to be 4 or 5 years before we could put that in place otherwise. And it would involve either a rate increase or some other kind of financing opportunity or revenue source.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith?
Mr. Helmer, I had a couple of questions. How would you lower, or how would you propose lowering the beachside I&I? I know one of the problems probably is you have more people retired there, so they're there all day, versus Vieira that we mentioned. They're younger by virtue of the fact that they're out and about and at school and working and et cetera. So what are some of the ideas that would reduce that?
Well, Commissioner, I think we need to continue to do our pipe relining where it's going to be the most bang for our buck and try to reduce the leaking into the system. I think we need to work with the homeowners. We don't know what we're going to find out from the smoke testing. We expect that there will be a lot of leaky laterals and problems with the private side. We need to work with them to figure out how we're going to be able to get them to repair those things. But I think between the combination of those avenues, we should be able to reduce our I&I. And we, as Frank mentioned, we want to be able to measure it going down the road after a year or whatever to see if we're making meaningful reductions, because that's what we expect and that's what we hope for.
And if you can achieve that, then that obviously reduces the cost going forward because we don't have to expand the system.
Yeah, it lessens the need for expansion. It opens up more capacity at the plant for septic to sewer conversions or any growth in the area that might be coming up in the future. So it'd be a big deal to reduce it.
I wanted to ask you another question too. We had spoken, we spoke yesterday when I took your briefing, and could you explain to the public a little bit about how the smoke test works and what you're looking for and what you think it will show you?
Right. The smoke test, and there'll be plenty of public information and education before we do that. It's not a dangerous type of smoke. It doesn't cause any problems at the house. But once we put the smoke into our system, we're going to see a smoke rise if we've got laterals nearby that are leaking, because it's going to go up through the leak in the pipe. And on the private side, you could experience smoke coming from illegal connections, like putting your roof drains into the sewer system or something with your swimming pool, or just taking the cap off in the middle of the yard and letting it drain through the swale and go into the sewer system. We're trying to keep stormwater and so forth out of the sewer system and leave it for treating the sewage.
So the purpose then would show smoke if you had a home, say, that had smoke coming out of their rain gutter. That would tell you that they're illegally dumping their rainwater into the...
Yeah, the smoke has gotten from our sewer system up through their rain gutter, which is an indication of an illegal connection.
Right. My last question, you mentioned approximately a $50 million cost for Indian Harbor Beach, not for Indian Harbor Beach, but for the lift station in Indian Harbor Beach.
Right.
Would the taxpayers be on the hook for that $50 million?
No, the ratepayers would be on the hook. The system is funded through water and sewer rates, the rates that the customers pay. So that's why the rates would have to go up if we did that kind of an undertaking in order to finance the debt service that would be required to build such a facility.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Barfield?
You know, one of the questions I have is this. In 2013, is when, it was prior to any of us were on the county commission, but there was the move to go ahead and get you the funding to restore the system and get everything to where it needs to be. Could you elaborate on what happened before that? The history on this? Because I know we go back to the package treatment plants and all the infrastructure there. It just seems that over that time period, there should have been something else done. I mean, at that point, way back.
I think the utility went for a period of time, not all of which I was a part of the utility. For a period of time, there wasn't a lot of money available. The economy wasn't very good. There was actually reduction in staff and so forth at the utility, and we didn't have a lot of money for a capital program. It got to the point where we actually had an internal audit done in 2012 or 13 that indicated that the utility was woefully underfunded and something needed to be done. You had $400 million of infrastructure, And so even if that all lasted 40 years, that's $10 million a year, and that's at what it costs to put it in. So we knew that we were way behind the power curve there, getting million, 3 million, whatever for a CIP. And all of our stuff was 50 years old, or most of our stuff in South Beaches and some areas were 50 years old. So we needed to come up with a way to get more funding to get this stuff taken care of. And so we went with a 10-year program and a series of rate increases that were able to fund that 10-year program. And so it's been up to us as priorities have changed to meet the changing priorities and reprioritize some of our capital program to make sure that we can meet those needs and still stay within the money that the board allowed us.
So basically, you've been behind the power curve all along. I mean, there's really, we're probably 20, 30 years behind trying to get this done, maybe more or whatever. So what you're doing is you're looking at the highest risk areas and trying to hit those first and work from there.
We are, because of what's happened to us, but I think that since we're only in year 3.5 out of the 10-year program, we've got a long ways to go yet with the money that they've given us. And so we're going to have a big bite out of this thing by the end of that 10 years, and everybody can take another look at it and see what else needs to happen at that time. But we're making progress because of the funding that we've been given.
Commissioner Isnardi?
Yeah, I had a couple questions, and I know I say this over and over again. I want to thank you both, Mark, and Jim. You guys have been to many meetings in my office, many meetings in neighborhoods, in people's living rooms, and I can't say enough for you trying to solve people's sewage and stormwater issues as well as utility issues, and you guys are top notch. And of course, Brian and Buster, and there's several others too, but thank you. I know we had some angry people in our office and at their homes, and you guys have been phenomenal, and thank you for working with my staff and Vic and stuff to get this done. But anyway, and I know maybe these are some of the questions you've already answered for me or already sat and explained to me more than once, but I think what people are having a hard time wrapping their head around is, aside from the I&I, because I think that that's a pretty simple process to understand that water is leaking in, and whether it's some of our fault or in our system, but what the unknown is and what the smoke testing is for, and what the big issue seems to be is basically we have old pipes that water is seeping in from the ground, and when we have heavy rains, that water is going into our sewage plant. That's basically the problem, aside from the illegal stuff, but this is the majority of our problem, and that's what's over flooding our systems. And I think the Vieira example is a fine example because, I know we have a lot of old people that retired and live on Beachside. We also have many families, big families that live in Vieira. So I would tend to think that they're probably using, and you could look at their water usage, is probably higher than what most Beachside residents are using. So the fact that their system is that they're only contributing about 160 compared to the Beachside's 286 is a big deal. So I just wanted to restate that. And again, another thing that's difficult to explain, and maybe even for myself hard to understand, is how this, when you hear that sewage, that partially treated sewage is being dumped into the lagoon, how is this not much bigger than anything else we have on the table as far as our lagoon projects go? And we can look at the pounds of nitrogen and phosphorus and the impact. Can you talk a little bit about where you took that sample from, and the fact that I believe you took it from the canal? Is that correct?
I believe it was from the Anchor Canal, wasn't it?
And that was before the discharge in the lagoon, but maybe explain that it's and I know this doesn't make anything better, of course, but that it's partially treated. And I guess maybe Virginia can speak on it a little bit too, but how does not dumping partially treated raw sewage not be number one priority versus some of the demucking that we have going on in the other projects?
The sample that the results were shown on the slide in the presentation, that sample was taken from the B20 lift station, which was the lift station that was releasing the water into the Indian River Lagoon. During the height of the storm, the water was being discharged into a drainage ditch that was directly connected to the canal. So I would expect that the concentrations that were going into the canal were as shown on the slide. But then as the storm went on, we were able to redirect that discharge into an adjacent stormwater retention pond, which allowed some time for sedimentation, filtration, some aeration, perhaps, and even disinfection through ultraviolet light. So it was receiving some treatment. It wasn't receiving, sufficient treatment, but it was better than the direct discharge into the canal. Is that the question you're asking me?
And again, the second part of my question is how does this not rank as a number one issue as far as what we have going on for our Indian River Lagoon sales tax projects versus what, I know with the utility, you can only do so much with the money you have, and you can only accelerate and reprioritize and do what you can. But as far as prioritizing projects, because I would hate to see us with all these cleanup projects and all this muck removal just to dump partially treated raw sewage into the lagoon. It sort of defeats the purpose.
So that was one of the reasons that Mark calculated how many pounds that 20 million gallons was the equivalent of. And so his calculation of 1,835 pounds from that release. For comparison, in the 10-year plan, if we implement all the projects in the plan, we expect to reduce the annual loading. Every single year, we expect to reduce the loading to the lagoon by 762,174 pounds. And of that, some is from septic removal, and some of it is from septic system upgrades, and then there muck removal. There are lots of other project types in there, but even just looking at the septic programs, those total about 90,000 pounds a year of load reduction. So while none of us like to see 1,800 pounds go into the lagoon during an emergency, it's not going to stop us from succeeding with this plan.
And so as a follow-up, you would say, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but you would say that that was a safer option than delaying any of the current lagoon projects? I mean, if you had to decide, if you had both projects in front of you, you would choose muck removal and...
Well, what we would choose is the most cost-effective projects that we could implement the quickest. And so one of the challenges with this overflow problem is we know how much overflowed. We don't know how much is leaking every single day into the groundwater, the parts of those privately owned pipes that are above the groundwater. And so once we have the smoke testing results, we'll have a much better idea of where those leaks are and what else is going on underground that we don't know about. Once we have that information, then we can get a better picture of what is the true impact of leaky pipes on the lagoon, and we can compare the cost of making those repairs or replacements to other projects that are in the plan.
Okay, thanks.
On the point of leaking pipes, I know we're talking about extra water leaking into it, but on that same note, if we have leaking pipes, we also have stuff that we don't want to be leaking into the ground, leaking into the water system also. So then those leaking pipes, you told me years ago, that's the elephant in the room. So we're addressing that now. I have cards on this item. Commissioners, do you have any more questions before I? Okay. Some of you might have already had your questions answered. That would be wonderful also. But I have Miss Michelle Roffer. Mitchell? Sorry, sir. If you state your name and place of residence for the record, sir.
Certainly will. My name is Mitchell Roffer. I live on Melbourne Shores, 6025 Highway A1A South. I'm also president of Roffer's Ocean Fishing Forecasting Service in West Melbourne. I would first like to publicly thank Jim Waymer in Florida Today for keeping us informed prior to today's presentation. It's obvious to me and lots of other people we need faster public reporting of the dumping of sewage into our neighborhoods. It shouldn't take a photo on Facebook to bring this to the public attention. And I'm also glad that you realize the importance of expanding our infrastructure. But we have to plan for the next 20 and 30 years. We can't just put a Band-Aid on today and forget about the populations increasing and the change in weather and climate that's going to occur in the next 20 and 30 years. And to the committee and others, please don't talk to us about BOD and nutrients. Let's talk about E. coli that was dumped in the water, other human pathogens, human health risks, and ecosystem risks and their consequences. To talk about BOD, it seems like that's just a minor thing. We live in a modern civilization, at least I think we do, and items like this should never happen, regardless of the weather. Clean water is a basic societal need, and we must spend whatever it takes to guarantee clean water, clean air, and a healthy ecosystem. We must spend the money, we must raise the rates, and whatever is needed to maintain our present infrastructure and plan for the future before we spend it on beach renourishments, and I live on Melbourne Beach, and tourist attractions. Let's not poison the well that brings us the high quality of life that we presently have now and attract others to come visit and live here. Spend the money. Take the hint. The state of the IRL ecosystems in terms of water quality still remains terrible, and this is part due to the hurricanes and all the water that's left to us. The lack of seagrass is still a major issue here in the lagoon. You may not hear about the comments, the lack of fish, and fishermen don't like to talk about not being able to catch fish. I've heard reports that the commissioners, John Tobia, had told us at a local meeting that they're not hearing much about lack of fish. Well, there's plenty of lack of fish, to use incorrect terminology. Charter boat captains don't like to talk about bad fishing because it ruins their business. They don't like to see publicity saying there's no fish being caught in the Indian River Lagoon. So trust me, I'm in the industry, and I know that there's a lack of fish here. And it's affected the numbers of fishermen and the associated industries in the lagoon. So with that, I'll finish my comments, and I thank you for the opportunity to present my thoughts to you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Smith, did you have a comment, sir? Your light's on. Okay. Mr. Hoffman? And if Ms. Harmon, Deborah Harmon, if you'd come forward and be ready, ma'am.
Good evening, Scott Hoffman, 655 Cinnamon Court, Satellite Beach, Florida. I appreciate the opportunity to speak today. I'd like you to know that Brevard County pumped 5 times more sewage than all the other counties in Florida combined. So somehow we're behind the 8 ball compared to all the rest of the communities, and they suffered the same storm that we had. The Indian River Lagoon is nastier than any time it's been in history. And in my opinion, it's not okay to dump millions of gallons of sewage into the Indian River Lagoon, regardless of what kabuki math you do that says it's only affecting nitrogen because of biological pathogens, prescription drugs that affect marine mammals and fish. Brevard County homes are built to a hurricane standard, right? We have to make our homes hurricane proof. Yet our sewer systems and our stormwater systems are not built to a hurricane standard. The system is sized only to deal with normal activity. Hurricanes cause a problem. In the last 7 to 13 years, we've dumped sewage into the Indian River Lagoon. Is it going to get any better? No, we're in a La Nina storm surge where we're going to get worse storms over the next 10 years. There are problems with leaking pipes, and you were very astute to mention the fact that when the stormwater isn't leaking in, sewage is leaking out of the pipes. It's leaking into our groundwater, which is leaching into the Indian River Lagoon through our sewer systems. Our streets are basically a big septic system. It needs to be addressed. I see that we have 4 problems. The sewage system is broken, and it needs to be lined and repaired. Pumping stairs need to be more aggressively repaired. We need more aggressive groundwater, stormwater, as they're destructive to the Indian River Lagoon, probably more so than the sewage problem. Our Save Our Lagoon program is fixated on this nitrogen thing, and they're fixated only on dredging. And the water quality is not a factor to them. This commission should be interested in water quality, which includes salt-tolerant bacteria, pathogens, prescription drugs that are flowing in through our dumping. Somehow we can pass laws about grass clippings, but we can't deal with the sewage problem in the homes. It's a little ridiculous. We need to own the responsibility for our water quality, and we need to employ water quality measurement program. So I asked the commissioners to do the following. Make a decree that it's not okay to dump sewage into the Indian River Lagoon. That's third world. Only in third world countries do they dump their sewage into their recreation areas. ask you to compel the utility department to more aggressively line the pipes. Lining the pipes will probably address 90% or 80% of the issue. And it's not a solution to have as a fallback to dump into the canal. And I'm sorry to say, but the sewage is not treated. The fact that they flow it into a rain retention pond, which doesn't meet EPA requirements, is not treatment. Yeah, the sun's hitting it, but you could watch the flow from the pipe go right through the box that's supposed to keep stuff out underneath South Patrick, and you could see literally fecal matter and toilet paper flowing well past the 10th of October. I have video if you want to see it. So to say that the sewage was treated as of the 10th of October, I have video I'll be happy to share with you that shows that that's not the case. The fourth thing I want is to create a carrot and whip program to address homeowner broken problems. I lived in upstate New York, and they fine people for having their sewage connected to the rain because it puts a tremendous burden on the whole sewage treatment, which if you address some of that, in the long run, it'll pay off because we'll be treating less sewage. Create a hurricane building code for our stormwater systems and our sewage systems so that we can ride through a storm and not have to dump. Compel the Save Our Lagoon organization to be in conformance with the ordinance. The ordinance in which the tax was designed for said they're supposed to come up with a plan for sewage, stormwater, and dredging. All they're interested in is nitrogen and dredging. That's not following the ordinance. That's not what the taxpayer signed up for. Finally, create a water quality management program where you all get a report on what the water quality is on a month-to-month basis. So in this meeting, every month you say, hey, what's the water quality? What is the salt-tolerant bacteria that's floating around? What is the turbidity? That's the how clear is the water? How muddy is it? That's caused by the horrible stormwater runoff problem. That's why our water is so dark. It's full of suspended solids that came from the roads. So I appreciate, and with your leadership and forward thinking, I think we can move forward and make this a nicer place and protect the resources that we have to enjoy on our everyday basis. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Harmon, Mark Ryan, you'll be next, sir.
Thank you. I'm Deb Harmon. I'm from Indian Harbor Beach, and I'm here representing the Marina Isles Homeowners Association. I'm going to start by giving you an excerpt of a letter that we submitted to Commissioner Smith last week, and then I'd like to add a personal note from my experience with these topics. The extended discharge of millions of gallons of untreated sewage into the Indian and Banana Rivers where we live following Hurricane Irma is simply unacceptable. Further, the public communication to beachside residents regarding the ongoing overflow situation was poor, and in some cases it was non-existent and must be improved. Facebook doesn't do it for us. The increasing frequency and severity of storms affecting coastal areas dictates that our community should invest and plan ahead to improve the storm resiliency of public infrastructure. The issue is important not only to beachside inhabitants or to the ratepayers, but also to the businesses and employees who depend on tourism, visitors, and the new residents who will be moving into areas of new development that were recently approved in beachside Brevard County. We believe the health of local residents, the Indian River Lagoon system, Brevard's economy, and our property values are contingent upon developing, and after tonight, I would say accelerating, a plan to increase the capacity and prevent future overflows of the extent witnessed after Irma. It went on for a very long time, and not a lot of people knew about it until it was too late. So I'm asking us all to seize the opportunity to engage the community. Tonight is a good start, and to be transparent in what are very complex issues. I have to thank the gentlemen here who are working on this problem and the county manager who's reprioritizing. Those are all good things to do. These are very complex issues, and we all need to be better informed. There are risk management issues and trade-offs that have to be made. Before I moved to Brevard County permanently in 2014, I had worked for more than 25 years in environmental consulting and water resources. including 7 years running the infrastructure practice of a major national engineering firm. In 2004, after Hurricane Charlie, I was in my shower after 7 days without power in my home in East Orange County, and the sewage started to back up into my home. A few years later, Orange County moved forward with a program to assess its aging infrastructure and come up with solutions. Through my professional and personal experience, I know solutions are available, and we've heard some of them from the prior two speakers. We need to take action, and we need to increase the urgency, and I thank you all for what you're doing, but it isn't enough. We need to do more. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Ryan, Lisa Sualto, you'll be next.
Madam Chair, I've recruited Deputy Mayor Nickel to help me hand out some documents, if I could, please.
Yes, sir. How are you doing, Mr.
Happy
Ryan?
holidays.
Thank you.
What we're handing out is a document that was emailed to each of you today, but I want to provide a hard copy in that you did get a chance to go through it. I'm not going to read the entire document. Thank you, Madam Chair. Indian Harbor Beach was ground zero for the discharge of 20 million gallons of sewage into canals and retention ponds behind homes and businesses in our community. Residents and businesses had the unfortunate experience of dealing with the odors, the solids, and whatever else floating down the canals near their homes. It impacted their lives. It impacted businesses. It impacted one business where they had to send employees home. It was discharged very close to a daycare center. So it was real. Coincidentally, when this transpired, we had already engaged a consultant to do some sampling of the discharges in our community as how they relate to things such as nitrogen, phosphorus, ammonia, and so on. Because we wanted a baseline to be able to come back and scientifically prove what improvements we do for the lagoon that are working. Nobody wants to see improvements, millions of dollars spent, and it doesn't work. We want the scientific basis for what we're doing. So what we did was we did some sampling after the storm. Madam Chair, in fairness to the other speakers, I'm not going there. Thank you. The analysis taken in September and October revealed some significantly higher rates of ammonia at 7.0 milligrams per liter, TKN of 10.5 milligrams per liter, total nitrogen of 10.5 milligrams per liter, and phosphorus of 1.20 milligrams per liter. These are significant. And this is only in the area of the discharge. If you look at the charts later on when you get home and you can't sleep tonight, it will show you how those samples result to other areas in the community. Very high. So we wanted to share that with you. And what we're looking at is some very good ideas here, but we concur you have an I&I problem. You have an I&I problem. Millions of gallons of water infiltrate into the system. Yes, you're looking at other options. Building a 6 million gallon a day wastewater treatment plant behind the homes north of Bella Coola, east of Anchor Drive, and south of Jamaica might solve the problem. What's the economic impact to those homes? Typically, people in a community, when they buy a home next to a wastewater treatment plant, they know the plant's there. They know what they're getting into when they buy. This is the reverse. You're implanting or inputting that facility behind those homes. What's the economic impact? I don't know. I'm not a realtor. I'm not an appraiser. But it's something that needs to be examined as you go down this path. The same thing with the 20 storage tanks that Mr. Helmer talked about. Those 20 tanks could have an economic impact on the values of those homes. So we believe that you're going about right and that number one priority is infill and infiltration. The other side impact we want to share with you is the flow of sewage into the canals in our community had the unintended consequences of impacting our future dredging project. How much additional stuff is now in the canals? We don't know. But now we've had an increase in the potential cost to remove that stuff. So I'm not going to read the entire report. It's there for you. If you get trouble sleeping, look at it, and happy holidays.
Ms. Cioto, and Ms. Barker, you'll be next, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Lisa Soto. I'm the Executive Director of the Marine Resources Council, and I want to start by thanking you for everything that you do for the Indian River Lagoon every day. I know you're working very hard for the lagoon, and you've done a lot. You and your staff are fantastic, and the Save Our Lagoon plan, we're behind it 100%. I do want to...
You are from Palm Bay, ma'am. I'm just going to throw that in for you.
Thank you. Yeah, the Marine Resources Council operates out of the Ted Moorhead Lagoon House, which is at 3275 Dixie Highway in Palm Bay. MRC is a charitable organization that's been striving to protect and restore the Indian River Lagoon for over 2 decades. And we were instrumental in leading this community in passing the Indian River Lagoon Act in 1990, which was the first act that disconnected the direct discharge of wastewater into the lagoon. Unfortunately, there were loopholes that were written after the fact that allowed these discharges to occur during unusual rain events. And here we are 27 years later, experiencing the consequences of letting those loopholes go on. So we finally need to close this up, be done with these unusual events as they've been described, discharges, and really clean up our lagoon. There are 3 points that I want to make today. One is that I feel like the sewage discharges are being underreported or underrepresented. What we heard from the speaker is that we've had 7 discharges in 13 years, and I think they're defining them as these unusual rain event stormwater-related discharges. But I have a report from the state of Florida for just this year's September and October discharges demonstrating there have been 67 raw sewage discharges in Brevard County alone, and almost half of them are actually on the mainland, not on the beach side. So just be aware that there are way more discharges occurring than you've maybe understood before, and that they're happening all over. That this unusual event, as has been described, is not so unusual after all. And in fact, 3 of those discharges were before the hurricane even hit, and 31 of them were after the hurricane was long gone. So this happens, it does happen with big rain events as described by the presenter, but it also happens for a myriad of other reasons. And it happens sometimes during rain events and sometimes just when there's not rain events. So of the 67, 27 were on the mainland, 34 were in September, 31 were in October, and 10 of the 67 that were reported were obviously, they were reported as discharging directly into the Indian River Lagoon. So 10 out of those were reported as described as being discharged into the lagoon, the Banana River, the Ogallie River. So the Ogallie goes into the lagoon. 47 of those were described as discharging into a storm drain, retention pond, or other unknown location. And just to clarify that storm drains, 1,100 storm drains, I think is the number in Brevard County, all of those go directly into the lagoon. Most of them, I think some of them may go into the St. John's, but that discharging into a storm drain pretty much is discharging into the lagoon also. Retention ponds, we already heard about. They overflow, especially after a rain event. If the pond is full, it's not going to have the capacity to take on millions of more gallons of sewage, so that's going to be a direct discharge into the storm system going into the lagoon. So I just want to clarify that this is happening way more, that call it whatever you want or define it however you want. It's untreated sewage being discharged into the lagoon, either through a retention pond, through a tributary, or it's in our watershed. It's getting into the lagoon through other means. The 2 other points have, I think, mostly been made. The second one, though, is that there's really inadequate monitoring of fecal coliforms. We would love to do something like a water quality program and advise you on what's going on with fecal in the lagoon, except it's not being monitored. Most of the monitoring, the Department of Health hasn't monitored it since 2011. The St. John's doesn't monitor the lagoon at all. The St. John's is monitoring 2 of the tributaries, the Ogallie River and Crane Creek, because it's impaired. Those 2 creeks are impaired for fecal coliforms. The lagoon is not impaired for fecal coliforms because everything dilutes once it hits the lagoon. And unfortunately, the lagoon monitoring is very limited. There are 4 stations in Brevard County monitoring fecal coliforms in the lagoon. So we can't report to you what's going on with fecal coliforms. We can't report to the public what's going on with fecal coliforms. When people ask me at work, can we swim in the lagoon? All I can say is I have no idea. And then the public health issue has already been described. What we're talking about here is fecal, matter and heavy bacteria and so on. So I'm going to end with that. Thank you very much.
Dr. Salto, would you wait just a moment? Commissioner Snarty.
Hey, Dr. Soto. It's a pleasure
Hi.
to see you again, and I
Thank you.
appreciate all that you do, not just for Marine Resource Council, but just as an advocate for the environment. Now, I don't want to put you on the spot, but you are the local expert, in my opinion, at least just given your history here. Now,
That's fine. Thank you.
given the gravity of the situation, just as a professional, do you believe that we should be doing these other projects before at least contributing to the utility? Because I know the utility can only do so much, ratepayers can only pay so much. We've got the increases, we're reprioritizing, we're doing everything we can on the utility end. Do you, at least in your professional opinion, believe that some of that IRL tax should go toward upgrading our sewage and our sewer system to prevent these discharges?
I knew you were going to ask me that.
I'm sorry, but I mean, I have to ask because I fancy myself at least somewhat of a scientist given my medical background. However, you are the expert in this area.
I
So,
think that
and I respect your opinion.
I appreciate that. The lagoon plan is very rational in the way that they have established, trying to reduce nitrogen and phosphorus at the best cost.
But if you believe that we're doing all these discharges and that they're underreported and everything, I'm not trying to get you to answer the way that I want, but
I think
and I know
that
you're supportive of the plan.
we could do better math to figure out how much nitrogen is really entering the lagoon from wastewater discharges. And that it may end up being more than 1,800 pounds of nitrogen.
Okay.
And then it would just fall into the same rational
And I guess where I
choice
get a
scenario
little, and it doesn't take, it's not really rocket science or even, marine science, is that we're talking over 10 years, the impact on the poundage and measuring the BOD, as opposed to if we fix the sewage system now, the impact would be greater because the sewage system would be fixed. So as far as how much over 10 years versus how much over if we fix the problem over the next 2 years, I mean, because it is a big problem and it's a multi-million-dollar problem just with the county system.
I agree that it's a big problem, and I think that there might need to be some consideration about these other pollutants.
Right.
That wastewater comes along with a lot more than just nitrogen.
Oh, exactly. I agree. Agree totally. Thanks.
But if we could monitor the lagoon and find these things, then we'd have a better understanding of how bad it is.
Yes.
So we're just kind of like, we don't see it because nobody's monitoring it and nobody's reporting it and the public doesn't know about it, and so it doesn't exist.
Right.
And that's a problem.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the question.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I'm sorry.
Ms. Barker? MJ Waters, you'll be next.
Good evening. Courtney Barker, City Manager for the City of Satellite Beach. I wanted to first thank you for coming up with the solutions that you presented tonight and also for presenting at the Citizen Oversight Committee. I wanted to read you some of the comments that we get on Facebook. A lot of people don't differentiate between the city and the county. So we can't even put, hey, we're putting solar on City Hall on our Facebook page without getting comments like, we have a crisis situation that caused the dumping sewage into the lagoon and you're putting solar on City Hall? Wow, installing solar panels while we're still dumping sewage into the lagoon. Now if you can just fix the sewer system. So when we initially met with the utility department on this issue back after Matthew, I think it was, when we first met, we had, we started out wanting to, choke and get mad, but it's clear that meeting with Mark and Jim, this is a long-term problem. It does have a lot to do with our geology and the age of our pipes, obviously. And honestly, when we started talking about the county slip lining and doing a lot of the pipe replacements in the beach side, we still had the private side issue. And that's when we came up with the idea of looking at a smoke test idea and developing an incentive program to start those pipe replacements on the private side. In that instance, I do see grant opportunities, maybe from the lagoon tax, but also from other agencies like St. Johns River Water Management District and things like that entering into this equation. And I do believe developing a program like that is going to be a model, honestly, for the rest of the state, because this problem isn't just here. And when we talk about sewer discharges, it's very important for the community to know that we are only talking about Brevard County tonight. There's many other utilities in our county and that we're not talking about right now. So we're only talking about the county. And we're talking about the discharges that Dr. Soto was talking about. Many of those didn't occur with this particular utility. They happened with the municipal utilities that are throughout the county. So we're very supportive of the smoke test. Our city will be happy. We've already offered the education. We'll be happy to write grants. We will be happy to use our Facebook page, our Beachcaster newsletter, and educate our residents and get them involved in getting this done and hopefully making that a model program. We do believe this is an I&I problem. We are strongly, I think the difference in sewer use between the beach side and Vieira easily demonstrate that. So I think if we look at pipe replacements first, start looking at how those lift stations are reacting to those, and get that data and turn that back in and see where we are before we start, sewer plants and things like that, I think we'd be in a much better shape. I also think that you have an excellent staff. I couldn't be more happy with their reaction, their time that they've given me, and thank you, Commissioner Smith, that he's probably taken more phone calls from me than he wanted, but he's also been more supportive than I could ever imagine, and we appreciate that. So we thank you very much, and also anything, we also started talking about how we can help after storms, and we started creating those partnerships with you because we want to make sure that we're definitely part of the solution, not just complaining. So we're here, we're here with you. So if there's anything you need from us, just let us know. We'll be happy to help you. You guys are doing a great job, and we appreciate you putting a lot of attention on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. MJ Waters and Mike Evans, you'll be next.
Good evening. I'm MJ Waters. I live in Vieira, Florida, and I'm president of the Brevard Indian River Lagoon Coalition, which consists of about 25 to 30 different environmental groups concerned with the lagoon. And we were very active in the educational effort that passed the Save Our Lagoon project plan last year. And it's very clear to us that Brevard County and all of Florida, in fact, has a huge plumbing problem. And it's been around for a long time. And it's time for us to really look at how do we address some of these long-term infrastructure problems that we have. This isn't just Florida, of course, it's across the whole country right now because nobody ever wants to pay for maintenance, they want to pay for new things. But I think if you look at the fact that we had 67% of our citizens vote for the project plan, every single precinct passed the sales tax to save the lagoon, there is a palpable support for protecting and restoring the lagoon. We were at the Ocean Reef Beach Festival on Satellite Beach this past weekend, and every single person who stopped by our exhibit asked us about the sewage. I mean, it's really out there. So it's not just those of us who are able to be here tonight, but it's like, regular families and folks out there who are saying, what the heck is going on? So there may be more support for a comprehensive plan than you may think to address this. The outrage is also palpable, as I'm sure you have felt and seen in your offices as well as here tonight. There are, as Courtney said, we know it's not just the county. There are other utilities throughout Brevard. Is there a way to somehow coalesce with some of those groups and have a comprehensive plan? We also know there are many bills coming up in the legislature next year to make additional funding and some matching funding available for some of the kind of projects that you're looking at. So we would encourage you to look at a comprehensive approach, a long-term approach to really once and for all solve this. The fact that we have 50-year-old clay pipes throughout Brevard is pretty amazing. So instead of just saying, how are we going to do this for the next 10 years, which is a wonderful plan that we have and it's in process, but let's try to look even beyond that of how are we going to continue this path, because that's clearly what our residents want. So thank you very much. Thank you for listening, and thank you so much for your information tonight. It was very helpful.
Mike Evans. Mike Dana, you'll be next.
It's Mike Evans from Indian Harbor Beach.
So I guess for the utility, you guys know how much water I consume on a daily basis because I get a bill at the end of every month. And you know every resident how much they consume. And if you assume that every gallon I consume goes directly down the drain, then you should also be able to measure how much outflow at various points in the system is going out of the system. So we shouldn't need to compare, well, I think Viera people stay home more, or they don't stay home more. You should know how much Viera people consume, how much Indian Harbor Beach people consume. And you should be able to map out, at this point in the sewer system, we're shooting 10,000 gallons a day, and all the people that feed that feed in 1,000 gallons or 5,000 gallons or whatever. Is that possible? Have you tried that? And then if you know that, you should know where your problems are. So we shouldn't have to just shotgun this whole smoke testing approach. Oh, let's try every neighborhood. You should know, here's my heavy hitters right here. I should start here. So is that possible?
Thank you, sir. Staff, would you like to answer that? But I think the water that goes into a house is always going to be more than what goes out of it, because some people use it on their lawns and other items. So not everything enters the sewer system.
Most
But
people
gentlemen,
water their grass with a well.
well, that would.
I can answer that. You're exactly right. And the utility does know, we do know from the water bills how much water is being sent to the house, and we expect that much back. And that's how we know how much, on the average, what the average flow per residence is. But in each, let's say, neighborhood, for example, that has a collection system with a pumping station, we know what the capacity of the pump is, and we monitor the run times. So we can count the houses and take that flow and know how much that pumping station is pumping versus what we should expect. And so we can calculate it neighborhood by neighborhood by neighborhood. And we've done that. And so we've ranked the neighborhoods, or those localized collection systems to the pumping stations, by the worst ones at the top, and just created a list. And so we've started the lining program for the public sewer years ago, and we're hitting those in the order that they pop up on that list. So we're hitting those, but the way you suggested that it be calculated is exactly right. That's exactly what we do, and we're hitting the worst ones first.
Can you publish that information?
Say that again?
Would you publish that information?
Oh,
like
the
where
list?
the problems are, and yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I can get you that list. There's a complication, though, where one pumping station pumps to another pumping station. So if it's just a number of houses collecting to a pump and then pumping directly to the plant, that's a simple one. But if it pumps to another collection system,
sure,
to another one, it becomes more difficult to really segregate it. But yeah, that list is available.
And is that how you're prioritizing this smoke test?
Yes.
Perfect. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Dana? And Terry Casto, you'll be next.
Mike Dana, live at 110 Lansing Island Drive, and I'm not representing a company any longer. I used to have a job managing assets for a lot of municipalities, Dana Investment Advisors, and we still manage a lot of municipality assets. I'm a board person now. You know, you've done a lot of good things here. You've gotten it going, but there is an expediency here. We've got a problem. I can't tell you how visceral it is. I live on Lansing Island, and it's an awful nice neighborhood, but you go down by your dock, and it's got stuff flowing by, you know. You just can't do that. And then I'm part of a bike group in the morning now. That's my big job. And we go by and we see big pumps and we smell them. And then we see this huge field out there. They're pumping, you know, the sewage into that field that then goes in around Lansing Island. I think you all know that. It is a visceral situation. So you've got an expediency. And I see we get fined. We can't get fined. We have to get like awards. We're a great part of the world. You know, everyone wants to move here. And by the way, at our last meeting, I think one of you folks or someone in the audience said, we're going to get 1,000 people a day moving into Central Florida. Well, you know, not to build the treatment center, you might want to think about that if it's going to take 5 years. We also have a different potential tax difference where you won't be able to write in the states that have to pay taxes, or you won't be able to write your taxes off against your Fed stuff. Well, I think we're going to get a lot of folks moving down here from New York and other places. So I guess my point to you is you're going to have more people want to move here. We've got to fix our, as she said, plumbing. Go with what you need now. I think you all know how to do this. And, you know, you're going to the one source of funds, but you have a couple others. You have some creative things that you could do. We're in a real low interest rate scenario right now. You know, I think you all have an A rating for your muni bonds. And there's not enough municipal bonds out there. And you could come with a $50 million thing is not a big piece. You know, we obviously need bigger pieces than that. So I think you have an opportunity there if you wanted to do it. One of our accounts, and I remember doing the meetings myself for a while, was the Milwaukee Area Treatment Center. That's a creative idea. What they do is take this processed sewerage and then they make it into fertilizer that you're probably buying even down here to go on your fields. It's called Malergonite, I think. You know, they put that name. So I'm just saying there's some creative things that we can do to get the money, other than what we possibly are doing now. But what you're doing is stopgap, and I think we all know that, and I think there's a great potential for more folks moving in here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Casto?
Excuse me, Madam Chairman. Madam Chairman, I need to correct something I said to Mr. Evans, where he asked whether we're prioritizing the smoke testing by that method. No, we're prioritizing the lining of the public sewer by that method. The smoke testing is going to be started in Satellite Beach, so the smoke testing is not prioritized by that method. The lining is prioritized that method, and I'm sorry for that.
And I apologize for putting you on the spot. I probably should have taken the question, let you respond in a little bit.
No,
So
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Mr. Casto?
Thank you. My name is Terry Casto. I live in Indy Atlantic. Do you need my street address? It's on the card.
I think Indy Atlantic's fine, sir.
Okay, good. Thank you. I serve on the board with the MRC. I also serve with Courtney Barker on the Citizens Oversight Committee. I think you were all involved when we passed the referendum that got us the half-cent sales tax. I want to speak briefly to guns and butter. You've heard a lot. We heard a lot when Mark presented at the COC from citizens who are understandably outraged at raw sewage, fecal matter floating by their docks on their high-priced waterfront homes. And even if you don't live on the water, the fact that there is unprocessed sewage, even diluted sewage, running into the canals. You know, their outrage is understandable. And there is a call for action. We do need to do something about the problem. But I just want to speak on, I'd say, on behalf of the project plan, and remembering that when the project plan was based on the best scientific data we had at the time, an analysis of the contributions of nutrients and other matter that contribute to the algae blooms and the fish kills in the lagoon. My message to you is don't respond to the urgent by misappropriating the money. If we were to move all of the money to restoring the sewer system to an absolute fail-safe, no fecal matter, no nitrogen, phosphorus getting into the lagoon at all, we would still have a problem in the Indian River Lagoon. The muck that's built up over the years is a 40% contributor to the nitrogen and phosphorus loading in the lagoon that contributes to the fish kills. Stormwater, we talk about human fecal matter getting washed into the lagoon. 80 tons of animal waste get washed into the lagoon every year from surface water that's coming in through the storm sewers. So muck removal, number one, stormwater abatement, number two, sewer to septic connections, number three, are sort of the three big drivers in the plan. The plan deliberately did not look at let's earmark money for the infrastructure to move sewage to the treatment plants. We did look at what can we do with the plan to aid homeowners to make connections to those sewer plants in the areas where it makes sense to get off of septic and get onto sewer. And it doesn't make sense necessarily in every home in Brevard County. So that's sort of the end of my little sermon. I just want you to be cautious and understand that while the sewage outflows, raw sewage into the lagoon is an emotional matter, it's a health matter. As Lisa said, we need more testing. But as MJ said, I think we really live in a county that understands the importance of the lagoon and our environment to the overall economic and health of our population, and that if we were to come forward with a plan, not unlike what we did with the Save Our Lagoon project plan, that you would find that it has considerable support. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Rick Dormany.
I'm Rick Dormany, Satellite Beach, moved here in June with my wife. I'm one of those old retired people that live in Satellite Beach, and we don't flush any more than anybody in Vieira, I can promise you. So there is an influx of water going in. Talking to my neighbors in Satellite Beach, we're all for, if we need to fix our systems, most of us are retired, we're on fixed incomes, but if there's some type of grant that can be applied for or something like that, we're amenable to fixing our part of the system, if that's what it takes. And to answer your question about should we fix this before the lagoon, if you had a pool in your backyard that sewage was running into, would you just keep cleaning the sewage out of your pool, or would you fix that first and then clean the sewage out of your pool? I mean, I agree. So I feel like that needs to be fixed first. Now, not cleaning out the IRL budget to do it. I don't think that's the answer either, because then you're going to sit there with a lagoon that can't be fixed because you don't have the money. So I don't think that's the answer. If I'm not speaking for everyone, but if there's a small amount that can be added to our sewage bill or whatever. I don't know how many residents we're talking about in the Satellite Beach, Indian Harbor area, but I know there's a lot. And something, amenable to an amount per square foot or something like that, that we can get this fixed. But we rode by not too long ago on South Patrick, and there was a line of kids fishing off of one of the little bridges there from the canals. And my wife and I were riding bikes and stopped and watched them fishing, and the smell coming out was horrible. And we got kids fishing there. I'm hoping they didn't take the fish home and eat them, but who knows? But that needs to be fixed. I mean, that's something that we can't live with on the beach side. And everybody I've talked to says the same thing. So I think it needs to be a priority, and I think the sense of urgency needs to be ramped up a little bit. This happened in September and it's November, we're having this meeting, and this meeting was pushed through another meeting. It should have already been scheduled anyway. But I think this needs to be a sense of urgency. I don't think 10 years down the road that's not going to get it. It needs to be faster. Money needs to be pumped in from whatever area it needs to be, but this needs to be a sense of priority and a sense of urgency. And that's what the people in my neighborhood say.
Thank you, sir. That's the last of our comment cards. Commissioners, do you have any comments? Commissioner Barfield?
You know, it seems to me we've got two different issues with this, two different situations that need to be corrected. The first part is we have to continue to fix the old infrastructure, the leaks we have now, ongoing leaks, and we have a capital improvement plan which may need to be tweaked, reprioritized, and I think y'all are doing that. But I'd like to see that come back to us again and see what we can do. Maybe we can reemphasize putting more of the bonded money into it to expedite some of the things there to get that done. But here's the second part, the second situation we have is what do we do when we have 36 inches of rain? Flooding is a major issue, not simply from, sewage is an awful situation, but we've also had it with the hurricane at Merritt Island. We had people that were up to their waists in water in their house. We've had septic tanks that, the same situation, their septic tanks end up in their house. The difference is, and this is gross, but at least it's theirs, you know? I'm sorry, but the thing is, it's not simply the infrastructure. Where we have the worst problem is in the flooding and our drainage. And I asked for some information I got not too long ago that looking at the average height of the Indian River Lagoon versus 10 years ago, it's 12 inches to 18 inches higher on average now. What that means is once water is treated or untreated or whatever, regular water, it flows slower into the lagoon. So we've got a major issue with flooding that's impacting all of our utilities, the water system, everything. And we need to relook at that, come up with another plan on looking at overall at what our drainage system is. So what I would suggest is we get together, set up another meeting at some point. I know Mr. Denninghoff and I have talked, and re-looking at how we do the drainage, how we look at development, maybe increasing the requirements on development, one-to-one drainage requirement for any development. Look at all those details, things we need to do for the future, because I don't want to see us 20 years down the road and, the people in the middle of Rockledge have waterfront property. I don't want to see that. That doesn't make sense. So I think we need to look at things as a big side of this too, the whole picture. The issue with what we need to take care of now, I believe we can do a good portion of it with the utility budget. But what I do like is what Ms. Barker said. I think we need to look at what the Indian River Lagoon money and put that as grants for individual property owners for their I&I situation to help offset the costs for redoing the pipes to the system. And the other side of this is, I believe you can monitor the output, and as you're going along with this, you can see as it comes down what the total gallons going through there versus what the baseline is right now. And as you do that, we should be able to get a good indicator of where we're improving at. The idea of lining with the ones that have the most flow makes a lot of sense to me too. So again, what I would say we need to do is, I think we need to, on a whole separate issue, relook at how we're managing our flooding, our drainage, how we do that for the emergency side. And because we had people in Rockledge that their houses were totally flooded. Nowhere near the river, nowhere near the lagoon, nowhere near the St. John's, yet they were flooded. We had the same situation in West Cocoa. And it happens all the time. The problem is the drainage has to be as fast as possible to, once it rains, to get out so it doesn't build up. It's not doing it. So anyway, so those are my two things that I request. I think we need to, well, actually three. I think we need to look at Indian River Lagoon, how we can use that to offset the cost to property owners. The other thing is, I think we need to look at the reprioritization, which you're doing. I think we need to look at that, and we need to look at it with a very careful eye about how we may need to put more money into it at one time, if we can do that, if it makes sense. And then the third thing is look at the drainage. And that's all for me.
Thank you, sir. Good words. Commissioner Nardi?
I was just wondering, and I would agree with you on the stormwater, I think definitely, and that's some of the areas that you guys have been very helpful with, the staff has been wonderfully helpful with. In some neighborhoods there's neighborhoods that actually have zero stormwater drainage maintenance, and it's mind-blowing, but, anyhow, I was just curious where this commission felt, or maybe Ms. Barker could give us some insight on what we would be tasking them with as far as helping homeowners with their own pipe repairs for I&I. Like, what would we be looking at? And I know, obviously the Indian River Lagoon sales tax issue will come up again, and I'm guessing that in the future, the commission will probably put it back on the ballot. I mean, that goes without saying. But I'm wondering how much we can look forward to allocating, or how much we should direct them to allocate, given that we understand the, how substantial this problem is. We know we can only fix what's wrong with our system, but if the majority of the system that we can't get to, how much money we're willing to commit to that, or how much we can at least ballpark direct staff to look at.
Oh. Commissioner Barfield, you want to answer?
Yeah.
Oh, I saw your arm moving.
Okay.
So, and I understand the concern that we're basing this on pounds of nitrogen, and obviously when there's sewage overflows, it's not just nitrogen that's overflowing. There's also fecal coliform and other human health concerns. So I acknowledge that, but to just sort of have a level playing field for comparison, we picked nitrogen as the standard. So if we use that standard and look at the 1,835 pounds that happened from this overflow, and we look at the recurrence of those overflows 7 times in the last 13 years, and Dr. Soto talked about 67, I think, reports of releases this go around. So the 20 million gallons that staff has reported from the Satellite Beach, Indian Harbor Beach facilities, that's multiple different days, multiple different reports. So I just wanted you to understand that 67 is it's county, it's city, it's multiple different reports that for us we have rolled up into 20 million released from this one area during the days and months event surrounding Hurricane Irma. So you take that 1,835 pounds and you look at what is the nutrient removal benefit to the lagoon of reducing the risk of that recurring 7 out of every 13 years, and back into a number of 840,000 that could be available from the Lagoon Fund to try to reduce that occurrence. I think that could be available for a pilot program, and as we get into that pilot program, doing the smoke testing, seeing what those actual costs are and how far the dollars go, how big the need is, what the other benefits are, we can expand. But I think that would be enough to get the program started and to learn what we need to know to identify, how big a program we actually need.
Virginia, for my concern also is for the lagoon, obviously. But if we have the private property owners' pipes are leaking all the time anyway, we don't even know how much damage they've done.
Right.
We don't know that.
Right. We need groundwater testing. We need other information.
But the point of it is if we know that's happening, and then we also know that there's influx when we have a big storm, we're really kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone here. It's other issues that we're covering all at once, which that's why I think it might be a good bang for the buck to look at doing.
Commissioner Tabaya?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for everyone showing up and explaining the problem. I represent the south part of the county, so I'm not getting many of these phone calls, but you've made it very clear that this is a large issue. My parents live in Satellite Beach. I grew up in Satellite Beach, and I certainly don't want this happening anywhere in Brevard County, whether it be my district or anyone else's. The way government shows prioritization is how they spend their funds. And through discretion of the board, we allocated almost $15 million for projects like stadiums and lighthouse keepers museums. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you see that issue, we, because of statute, are not able to spend those resources for items like the Indian River Lagoon. So while you've given us much to look at, much to spend time, much to prioritize, I would like to ask something of you. Representative Randy Fine is sponsoring a bill in the legislature, I believe it's House Bill 585, in which he would take those resources that are currently being expended on multi-million-dollar stadiums, putting artificial turf on the Vieira Stadium out here, like I said, the Lighthouse Keepers Museum, which may not, which are worthy projects, but I think are not the level of sewerage in your backyard, and giving us the ability, not mandating, but giving us the ability to use those current resources that we collect. And again, to understand this, the Indian River Lagoon is not a river. It is an estuary. So all Representative Fine's bill is would allow us to do is use those resources that were already collected to fix the wastewater that is backing up in your guys' backyards. So if you do get a chance, I please ask and kudos go out to Representative Fine, who has through Facebook brought this esse to the forefront. So he's not only brought it to the issue to the forefront, he's actually taken a step further to try to help provide us with another tool so we can do this. Now, this is not something that could come around till after the legislative session if it's passed. So certainly we need to continue with or at least start as we did today with the smoke testing. But this is something that will not have us increase rates. This will not have us increase millage. This would not have us do anything. It is just using resources that we're currently correcting, because I think it would be very difficult for me as a commissioner to sit up here and say that a stadium is more important than sewage that is backing up in your backyard. So again, if you get the opportunity, send him a Facebook message, call his office up, and let them know, please, that you think that the commission should have the discretion to use tens of millions of dollars that we collect every year to help the lagoon, because it is tourist money, but many tourists come here for the wonderful things that this lagoon provides. So just because of that little syntax there with estuary and river, I think it's an absolute shame. So thank you again for showing up, and my heart goes out to you, whether you live in a multi-million-dollar house or whether you walk by the river. It is absolutely abhorrent that this is happening, and we do have the resources. If we have the ability to use those resources, it would make this problem at least get closer to the solution. So again, Randy Fine, let him know that you support him in his effort to help clean the lagoon.
Commissioner Smith, is your light working yet? Are you pushing your? Okay. Would you like to? Okay. Okay. Okay.
Give a politician a chance to talk, right? You may regret it. I want to thank you all, too, because this is, as my good friend Dr. Dwayne DeFries, who's the director of our Indian River Lagoon Council, said, there's no rationalization for failure. We've had failures in our system, and it's tragic. But I think perspective is important as well. I think somebody said tonight that we were the only county that had a problem in the state. In fact, there were 268 sewer failures in the state during this rain event that we called Irma. In Houston, when they had their storm, they had 100% failure in their sewer system, 100%. So I think some of the points that were made tonight were extremely important, one of which was, at what point do you overbuild this and spend the money for something that may happen 6 times in 13 years, or it may happen every year? So those are the kinds of questions that have to be asked, and we have to come up with rational answers. It would be nice if somebody had a magic wand and we could just provide lots of money and build super sewer systems that would never fail. But that magic wand doesn't exist. So there are perspectives that have to be looked at. There's parameters that have to be looked at. But having sewer water going into people's backyards by way of a river, into their retention ponds, in their neighborhoods is not good. It's not a fun thing, and it doesn't benefit anybody. But again, perspective, would you rather have it come up in, like one lady said, up through your shower, or if that's the only alternative? So what I think, bottom line is, we have to change the alternatives. We have to make this alternative not exist. We can't have an either or, an either in your shower or somebody's neighborhood. We have to solve the problem so we don't have an either or. We have to fix it. And I believe that we're on our way to do that. And Representative Fine's bill would be something that would be worth looking at as well, I think. It would give options. So whether that can get past the legislature, that's another question. Representative Fine and myself, we collaborated on an idea last year to inspect septic systems upon the sale of a home that was within the watershed area of our case, a lagoon or any other watershed. And it made all the sense in the world to me and him, because currently there is no requirement for an inspection, and a septic tank can go bad. And we know it can go bad, and it can leak an awful lot of bad stuff into the ground that's not supposed to go there. But unless it's inspected, who knows that? So the idea that we had was that when you enter into an agreement to sell your property, first of all, you're required to let the person know that's buying it that you have a septic system. 2, that the septic system would have to be inspected, the whole system, not just the tank. I mean, we require roofing to be inspected upon the sale of a house. How much more important is it to inspect a septic system? Unfortunately, Representative Fine found out that in Tallahassee, maybe it's more important to inspect the roof than a septic system, because basically they turned their back on him and said, we're not interested in this bill. So those are the kind of things, and I know I'm rambling a little bit, but those are the kind of things that politicians, both locally and a state level, and your staff in your counties, your cities, and you, the public, these are the things that we're all dealing with. And I agree, we have to come up with some solutions. Aren't you glad you asked?
Yes, sir. Mr. Barfield?
Maybe think of one other thing. I've got the same problem Commissioner Smith has, I guess, rambling on. We need to be monitoring for the public health, E. coli. And years ago, that used to happen here. It was when there was a scallop industry and oyster industry, there was routine sampling done for E. coli. And the Department of Public Health did that. And I don't know why, and I'm going to take this on to find out why it stopped. And if it's strictly a funding issue, then that's something we need to be working with our House and Senate representatives to get that pushed through. It makes no sense to me why we aren't monitoring for the public health of the lagoon when we use the lagoon as a recreational source. So we need to look at that. So.
Thank you, sir. Probably the lagoon and the beaches, if we're going to start monitoring for those types of items. You have on our request here, and I've got a couple things I'm going to ask you about doing a state loan program. And from what you guys had briefed me on, it's a very low interest rate. So that would be a really good thing, and you guys are going to look into finding some funds for us to utilize to work on this, right?
Yes, we are.
Okay, and you know what, this thing, we have to get started on it, but this is going to be a long-term process, and we got to get together and work on a strategic plan. I know we have some stuff that's already in the works, as Commissioner Barfield pointed out. Maybe we need to do some switching with it to figure out what we need to accelerate and what maybe we need to maybe put towards the end. This it really is more of a user situation because not the whole county uses this process. So we've got to do what's equitable for the county now too, because other municipalities are paying for their systems and they're going to have to come along and pay extra to fix their systems also. A couple thoughts as everybody was speaking, and we have such a smart commission up here. We had 36 inches of rain in that Irma period, and that's as much as we typically have in a year here in our county. So it was a different type of event. And I know in our district, we had people having water in their houses and gators actually swimming by the fronts of them and some really bad situations. So Ms. Barker, something else too, and Commissioner Barfield brought this up. Our river has increased 12 to 18 inches. Is that accelerating? Is it stabilized? Are we looking to another 12 to 18 inches in the next 10 years also? I mean, do we really need to start planning for a more strategic thought as we're moving forward? Because, you know, we get another 12 to 8 inches, we're going to lose some of the barrier islands also eventually. So how does this project into all of these plans? Because that's also going to drastically change what we're trying to do here, that we're not putting a Band-Aid on something we need to do maybe an aggressive work on.
I don't think I have all the data I would need to really answer that question correctly, but we have seen the water levels rise in the Indian River Lagoon over the last 50 years, and we anticipate that they will continue to rise. And as the commissioner explains, that challenges the current drainage system. And so we do need to be designing future drainage systems and retrofitting our existing drainage systems, taking all of that into account.
Okay, and this is going to be a lot of money. And I know the Indian River Lagoon funds, we were projected $32 million. You think there almost might be $34 million. So there's a lot of funds there, but the thing you're challenged with is this, what specifically they can be used on, because that was a voter referendum, and they have to be used on new projects. So I know you guys are all working towards that as a board. I actually got to watch your board meeting, and great group of people. So I know that's a challenge, and I'm thinking when we start with the satellite project, we're going to get kind of an idea of what we're looking at as far as the possibility of those types of things. But I'm going to throw out it, if we do grants, that it's to the grants to the people in the whole community if they have those types of leaks. So it's fair to all the taxpayers that are investing in that they're able to help fix those situations also. But I'm guessing what you're asking us for us tonight is that we were able to have this discussion and you're going to work towards a low interest loan. Am I correct? What are you asking from us this evening?
Well, we would like to have your approval to move forward with that state revolving loan program for the project that we have to replace the 3.4 mile section of pipe that is breaking frequently. That SRF loan, when we got one for the South Central area, it was 1.04% over 20 years. So it was a tremendous savings compared to conventional financing. We think the savings is still there. I'm not sure it's at 1.04, but it'll be a lot cheaper than other forms. And the initiation costs of the loan itself are a lot less also.
Are you needing a motion on that, sir?
That would be fine. Thank you.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we move forward with funding for the replacement of a 3.4 mile section of the county's South Riverside Drive force main.
Do I have a second? I have a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Were you able to glean enough information for you guys to start putting some ideas together? I know Commissioner Isnardi and Commissioner Barfield and Commissioner Smith and Tobias all put out ideas that we can start working towards a strategic plan of.
Yes, we've got all the information, and we'll definitely try to incorporate that into what were our future plans and our reprioritization and all that.
I would just like to make a request that maybe in a couple months you can come back and give us an update on where we are on that.
Yes, ma'am, that's not a problem.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Barfield?
I'll get with Mr. Denninghoff and we'll get together and talk about setting up some kind of a plan on the overall drainage.
All right, I think we're finished with this item. Thank you guys for coming out, and hopefully we'll have some good solutions here for you and good and direction on where we're moving forward with this terrible problem. We're on item new business 6D.
Madam Chair, this is an item where the county has prepared 4 deeds to send off to various municipalities on property that was given to the county for lack of payment of taxes, but all these properties are located in the city, so by statute we have to deed them over to the cities. That's what this is all about.
All right, do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Motion from Commissioner Isnardi, second from Commissioner Smith. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. And we're at public comment. Yes? Where I did new business. I have, oh yeah, we're done. Right. Mitchell Roffer?
Highway A1A, Melbourne Beach. Being it's such a long drive here, I thought I'd get the opportunity to speak with you another time. This comments I have is surrounding Hurricane Irma with regard building construction. Driving home before evacuating on Melbourne Beach, we noticed that construction sites were still being loaded with roofing tiles and roofing materials right before the hurricane came onto town, while there were hurricane watches and warnings. And I think in the future this needs to be stopped. These became projectiles during the storm, and additional damage from the storm is held. I don't know who to go to on this, if it's building and zoning, construction, code enforcement, whatever, but I have pictures of them unloading roofing tiles just 2 blocks from my house, and that was a problem on Melbourne shores. So maybe we can go offline or something and learn how to deal with this. Regarding the comments that the commissioners made, please stay the course on the Save the Lagoon plan. We need to fix the lagoon and separately fund the infrastructure that's been underfunded for so many years. Drainage is a major problem, and Commissioner Barfield mentioned, and Commissioner Tobia knows about the problems of drainage because he attended a Melbourne Shores Homeowners Association meeting recently about the problems of drainage and feces on the road due to lack of drainage in our neighborhood. And then finally, I agree with Commissioner Tobia and to support Representative Fine to spend those tourist dollars on much more important issues rather than baseball fields, et cetera. And then just regarding Commissioner Smith's comments, I recently spoke with Senator Nelson and Rubio's staff at their offices in D.C. when I was up there in a meeting about providing leadership for fixing the infrastructure in America, because it's certainly not a Melbourne or Brevard County problem. It's a nationwide problem. Granted, they may not want to give money, but certainly leadership is needed to raise the issue, and you obviously now know that infrastructure needs to be funded and may not be pretty, but we're all going to be around here for a long time, so we need to start funding this properly. Thank you.
Up to board reports and presentations. County Manager, Mr. Bate.
And no reports.
Thank you. Mr. Knox.
Madam Chairman, we had an executive session on the Williamson case that involved the pre-meeting prayer, and I'd like to get your permission formally to file the appeal on that case.
Yes, sir. Do I have a motion on that?
Second.
We have motion and second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0, sir. Commissioner Barfield? Commissioner Tabaya?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I propose a resolution regarding comments made by the chairman of the TDC, Mr. Ridenauer, towards a member of the Brevard delegation. After the meeting, I learned that he had actually apologized to the representative. Had I known that he apologized, I certainly would have pulled the resolution. I definitely appreciate the fact that Mr. Ridenauer was able to recognize the impact of such remarks, and I want to thank him for contacting Representative Fine directly. I hope we can put this matter behind us and move forward for the citizens of Brevard County. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Smith?
Comment regarding financing. We've talked a lot tonight about infrastructure in people's homes. We're assuming there are many homes that have laterals in their yards that are failing. There is a program that I guess the county is going to consider. It's called the PACE program, and it will allow people to access the value of their homes for low-cost loans. So I wanted to bring that to people's attention too, because I think that will be an important tool that people can use.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Isnardi?
Yeah, I met with those guys when I was first in office. I met with the PACE folks, and it was interesting, and it's just, when you're new to office, you get inundated with information. So I have a meeting, I guess, with them next week, but it is a good program, I think. Maybe it's something we could bring back to look at. It's a good idea. Again, and I know you guys are probably sick of hearing it, but you just don't know how much time and effort that the county staff has put into my office, to my staff, to Vic, to the residents out in Indialantic and other places. And it's overwhelming. And it's a simple ask, and they say yes, and they're out till 7:30 at night in a neighborhood with 5 or 6 residents that have sewage in their backyard. But willing and able to help with a plan. Mark, the engineering genius, and Jim with his excellent way of explaining it to people, and Brian and Buster trying to fix people's stormwater issues. And I've got a meeting tomorrow, and county staff's like, yes, how many of us do you need, and who would you like there? So again, I just can't thank you enough. Everyone knows this is a problem, and everyone wants to solve it, and I am just so proud of all of you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Abate, for your leadership.
Thank you. I just have one thing that I wanted to mention. I was wondering if we could get an update soon on the pharmaceutical zoning that staff was working on for the changes for the medical marijuana. My hope it would be as simple as possible just to resolve those issues. We have a lot of people that are constantly contacting my office, so I wouldn't mind getting some direction on this soon from staff where they are on that, and so that we can bring that discussion up again. Anybody else? Then I call this meeting adjourned. I call this meeting to order. And I forgot to finish this business at the end of the meeting, so we reconvened the meeting. This is our board liaison appointments, if y'all would look at them, and if you're all right with them. I do need to move Commissioner Isnardi on the East Central Florida Regional Planning Council. She's not able to attend that one. So if any of y'all would like to have it right now, and let me know, that'd be fine. Otherwise, I'll figure it out this week and bring it back up. But we do need to vote on the Children's Service Council. If someone would like to do that, I would love to take it. Okay, Commissioner Isnardi.
Do you know when they meet or anything?
They meet once a month, probably every other month on an afternoon, and it's at the school board.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure which department, but we'll get you the information.
Okay.
I actually served on that one last time.
Did you?
It was a nice board.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll do it.
Okay, can I have a nomination for Commissioner Isnardi? Okay, got a first and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Passes 5-0. And the other one is the Value Adjustment Board. Would anyone like to serve on that one?
Madam Chair, I would volunteer.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve, to recommend Commissioner Tobias as one of the slots.
Okay, do I have a second? Second, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, Commissioner Tobias, that's yours also.
Is there 2 on that board?
Oh, I need someone else to volunteer. Do we have a partner for that one? Okay, Commissioner Barfield, do we have a nomination for Commissioner Barfield?
I'll make a motion to nominate Commissioner Barfield as the second member of the Value Adjustment Board.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Would anybody like to do the East Central Florida Regional Planning Center? You are, sir. What days and times are that?
It's in Orlando.
What day?
It's always on a day that I can't go, and they get frustrated that I can't make it. So.
Okay, 10 o'clock in the morning.
In Orlando.
Okay, how long does it last? All right, how about if I bring that back up Thursday and we'll see
I
if
was going to say,
anybody...
I was on there and not going, so somebody else can be on there and not go for
Well,
the next year.
if nobody else can and not go, I'll be on it and not go, so we'll see if you guys...
I think as long as we have representation.
Yes, sir, ma'am.
Right. Well, I made it clear last time that I wouldn't be able to make it and was still placed on the board, so. But I'm just saying, like, I made it clear that I couldn't go, but I was still placed on the board anyhow, so I've got a bunch of boards I'm on already, so.
Okay, did anybody want to do it? Okay, then I'll put it on mine. Okay, we've done all the business we need, so I call this meeting adjourned.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.